Second of Slate, 1206. I wonder if it hurts to be a necromancer. Baron Moldov seems fine with it, but I wonder what it feels like to actually become one. Lately, more and more dwarves have been reading those secret books and making the change. It's weird. Moldov told me that his heart hasn't beaten in a long, long time, but I couldn't tell if he was lying or not. He lies a lot, I think. I hope I don't become a necromancer. Moldov's skin looks like an old boot. Anyway, I went back up to the surface today, to the Temple of Aker. We're not supposed to mess with them, but I really like looking at the giants. I kind of feel bad for them. Like, I know we have to throw them into the volcano in order to please Scorchfountain. Just, I don't know, it seems like an awful way to go. I think the Cyclops are my favorites. I named one of them Fatface. Sometimes, I wonder why we are at war. Right now, we're fighting the elves, but why? Our goal is to unite Orodashi, but we're destroying everyone who doesn't agree. I suppose, in the end, it's their fault for not listening to Baron Moldov. The elves are going to have to go the way of the fresh theater dwarves, and the humans before that. I just can't help but wonder, how many people out there hate us for what we're doing? It's just that they don't understand. I hope they will one day, before it's too late for them. Make Aker's flail grace us. Vutok Vokarl Death, Beetle Baby the Second.
Can it all end so quickly? Begone, fear.
My fault Tinstops is really dead. I am almost overcome by grief.
Well, hello you bearded bastards, and welcome back once again to Orodashi, the universes of wonder, where we once again find our small adventuring party now terribly wounded after a horrifying encounter with an Etten. And not just physically wounded either, their spirits too have taken a serious hit, because during that encounter they lost 2 of their number, Iteb the hunting dog, and Matfall, the diagnoser. Now I think we have to take a better look at our party and their wounds, but first we have to get away from that cave. We only really just escaped, and it is down just to the southwest. If that Etten continued to chase us out of the cave, I imagine it could reach us pretty quickly. And if that happened, I don't know how lucky we could be again. So yes, here we go. Straight up here to the north, where we'll find a river. Yes, there it is. A big river. Very wide. Interesting. Yeah, we're gonna have to get across that at some point, but first things first. We'll move right over here, hoping this is far away enough. And now let's see what we're working with. Starting with Thob the Miner. It looks like his ability to grasp is now somewhat impaired. Remember, he took a serious hit to his right upper arm in that attack, from that Etten's iron axe. A bad hit. Yeah, it looks like his arm's skin and fat is cut open, as well as a motor and sensory nerve. Ugh, that is a bad one right there. I don't even know if he could use his arm anymore, but I guess we'll see. It could still heal. I wish we could get it cleaned out. Infection might be a problem down the road if we don't, but really I'm not even too sure how to go about that. Next up we have Rimtar the Metalsmith, who looks to be winded and is now having trouble breathing. I think he took a hit to his chest and now his lung is bruised or something like that. I don't think it's that bad though, but we can see that his grasp is also somewhat impaired now. Yeah, he's taking some hits. You can see he's terribly bruised over most of his body, and his left false ribs are now smashed apart. Yeah, bruises everywhere, and his lower body has some big cuts, including a torn artery and his left kidney too, which now has an infection. There's a solid chance that'll be the end of him if we can't deal with it. Man, that is not good. Just to think, a couple nights ago he was singing in the moonlight underneath a feather tree with Mafal. Regrettable. Next up we have Dodak the Jeweler, who looks to be absolutely fine. She somehow managed to get out of that fight absolutely unscathed. Well, that's good. Good news, finally. Well, Dodak, it looks like you're probably going to have to help carry the rest of the group a bit. We need you now. Our group needs you if we're going to be successful. Next up we have Cybreck the Ranger, who is a bit overexerted from that run out of the cave, but other than that, she seems to be doing rather well, just like Dodak. I don't think she was hit at all during that combat. Excellent. Well, Cybreck and Dodak, you two are going to have to really help carry the others for a little bit, I think. At least until our wounds heal, which they may. I'm trying to keep my hopes up. We'll see what happens. Next up is Kogan, who's a bit tired, just like Cybreck. And having a look at his wounds, he does have some heavy bruising about his body, and also his head, skin, and fat is torn open. He must have taken a hit up there at some point. It doesn't look like it's that bad, which is great. But again, I really wish we can get it cleaned out. If an infection sets in, he might be screwed. Oh, and on top of that, it looks like he's missing his left tusk now. Must have been knocked out in that combat. Man, that is rough. One of his prized tusks. Our condolences, Gorlek. Gonna move on now to Ted, the Testres Warrior, who really appears to have gotten the worst of it. She is tired, and her ability to stand and to grasp has been lost. And on top of that, it looks like she has some sensory nerve damage. She also has cuts all over her body, all over the place. Some arteries are ripped apart. She has a torn tendon in her left upper arm. Her left lower arm's bone is smashed apart and needs setting. Not something we could do out here on the road. Oh, and her right lower arm too. The bone is smashed apart, so both of her arms are now smashed apart. Oh, and her left foot. Broken and an artery is torn. I guess we're glad that she got out of it, but she might need to be carried from now on. I don't want her to be too much of a burden, but I suppose she's come this far, so we can keep going. She might still recover a bit. We probably have to rest a while just to see. Oh, and you know what? I almost forgot. We have one more member as well, Godin the Mule, who we can't see any detailed health information on, but, well, from outward appearances, it looks like his left front leg is bruised and his right front hoof is missing. That's right, I guess the Etten must have, sliced it off or something. Damn, man, that is a rough go. What a tough animal, though. Still trotting around carrying all this stuff. Godin, you are one heck of a mule. Hang in there, buddy. You know, swimming is not a good idea most of the time, especially seeing as how none of our members can swim. But I'm thinking it might be best if we have a go at it. Not to get across the river, mind you, we would die if we did that, but just take a quick little dip in, and maybe that could help clean out our wounds. You know, it would seem awfully foolish if we jumped into the river and someone was swept right downstream and we never saw them again. That would be very foolish, but it would also be foolish if we died of infection later on, somewhere out in those wilds. So I'm thinking we might have to take a stab at it. Alright, I'll tell you what. We won't swim here in the river, of course, but we're going to follow it to the west, over to where it meets the coast. And hopefully there we can find a nice little shallow spot we can kind of dip our toes into, or rather our whole body, I guess. And, you know, clean ourselves up a bit. We'll try to be safe about it. Really hoping this works, man. And also I'm really hoping it doesn't get too dark by the time we get to the beach. And of course, going along with the party's recent streak of bad luck, it was nighttime when they reached the ocean. It was pitch black outside, and their spirits were terribly low, but luckily they had no issues whatsoever cleaning off their weary bodies. There was a bit of a scare when Dodak jumped into the water with a handful of gems while also holding her warhammer, meaning she could not swim, but luckily she had the insight to drop the items down into the water before climbing back ashore. Cybreck the Ranger dived in afterwards and collected the items, only returning the warhammer, and keeping the gemstones as payment. The greedy bastard. Afterwards, they marched their sopping wet, wounded bodies inland and made camp for the night. It was the 3rd of Slate, 8th day of their journey, and a day they would not soon forget. The next morning, on the 4th, the party was feeling much better. They were now well rested, and many of their wounds had healed, at least somewhat. One of the most remarkable discoveries was that Ted's bones had healed themselves, perhaps due to her being a necromancer experiment. It was a bout of serious good luck, tempered by some rather bad luck. As they made their way northward to the river they had intended to cross, they discovered that in fact it was too wide for them to do so. Now the options were plain, because there was only one. Traveling westward would bring them to the coast, where the river drained into the sea, and so they would have to head eastward and hope the river thinned out at some point, or that they could at least find a bridge. Though there was a problem with this, as just upstream the party discovered a goblin pit. The river went directly through the pit. Now, they could go around the pit and hope to find a thinner river on the other side, or they could go through, which of course they did. Expediency above all else, their mission was important, though they did promise themselves not to get into any trouble while they were in there. That was the intention anyways, but after searching for a few hours and finding no way to cross the river, the dwarves began to get bored. Besides, they didn't see any signs of activity within the pit, and so upon spotting a rather large tower, they decided to carefully take a peek inside. Climbing to the top, they had a look at the surroundings, and confirmed the fact that there was no way to cross the river. They would have to go around the pits, a trek that would probably take many days. That being the case, and still encountering no signs of life within the tower, the dwarves espied a downwards passage, and so decided to have a safe look down below. Down beneath the surface, the tunnels were surprisingly cool. For sure, it was nice to get out of the sun for a bit, though the abandoned pits were a tad disquieting. After a while, the party walked into a large chamber, at the bottom of which was a collection of memorial slabs and sarcophagi, a burial pile for the goblins who once lived here. It was hard to say what had happened to the inhabitants of this pit. Goblins are known for their foul nature, but it was hard not to feel a pang of sorrow to these poor lost souls, and also to the souls that they themselves had lost along the way. They had quickly come to the realization that they were still in the middle of Scorchfountain's warpath. Due to the lack of carnage here in the pit, it was unlikely that those forces had been here, but still, the dwarves decided to leave and to carry on with their mission, their pace quickening threefold. The path around the pits was long indeed, and took much time to traverse, and so the dwarves decided to travel through the night. A foolish decision. That worked out rather well, actually. 4th of Slate became 5th, and they continued moving on, all the more weary, though their mood had been bolstered, because early on the 5th they found a way to circumvent the river, and so were finally able to continue on their way northwestward. They were truly in uncivilized lands now. The Murk of Legends was an arid expanse of nothingness, hot and unforgiving, but seemingly lacking in all threat. Days began to meld together. Slate 5th became 6th. The party continued, their trek now seeming rather monotonous, though at this point it was something they were beginning to appreciate. The going was steady as the days continued to pass. The 7th came and they carried on. Moving out of the Murk of Legends, they continued into the Fuchsia Plain, and then the Blotted Plains, and then the Competitive Fields, slightly aggravating, as the change of name did not reflect a change in scenery. Every place the party entered was more arid than the last, seemingly, and the heat became more intense as the days marched on, slowly approaching Oridashi's scorching summer season. On the 8th day of their journey, the party awoke to see something they had not encountered before on their trip. Rain. It had begun to rain. It was a much appreciated reprieve from the scalding heat, and it served to greatly reinvigorate the adventurers, who, at this point, had another look at their map. Now let's see here. Here we are once again in the Murk of Legends. There were a couple of different scrublands that we passed through, but it looks like the Murk of Legends covers quite an area. Now, yes, you can see we're right here in the middle of this unexplored territory. We can see quite a distance around us right now, just because we're in a scrubland, and so that's why this whole area is uncovered like this, though all around us it looks like there are thick forests. They're a ways out, but they're there. Now, just down to our southeast, you can see a small group of elves. We passed by them, and there's also a fort down there, a cave, which we're not approaching, of course, and you can also see the Innocent Sea. Now, I'm gonna zoom out here a bit, just so we can see the full map. And okay, now if you see, I'm going to draw a line right here. This is where that cave was where we lost Matfall. So we moved quite a distance in the past couple of days. Right over here is where we first saw the coast, and somewhere over here is where we fought that necromancer experiment. That fort, Wealthy Raptors, is over here somewhere, or rather over here. That's a place that had those creepy elves, remember? And our starting location was Yes, right here. So this is the distance we've traveled so far. It's been quite a ways, but we have to go a little bit farther, I think. And we're gonna try to speed through it too. We've been taking far too long out here on the road. It's been nearly 2 weeks now. Now, we're gonna want to head somewhere up in this direction. We don't really know what's up here except for elves. We are in the Elflands right now, surrounded by all sorts of elven empires. But the farther northwest we can go, the better, I believe. Now, I know we're supposed to be going up this way here, and we are, but it's a damn shame we couldn't make a fort on the coast. Just keep thinking of poor Mathol and her reaction to seeing the sea. Her respect for that powerful force. It would be a nice way to remember her, but alas, not much we could do. Maybe we could find some other body of water up this way. We'll see what happens. I've been rained on. It makes me so grouchy. Ted, the creative impulse is so valuable.
Where is this even coming from? Although my own insignificant beliefs lie elsewhere, no one can deny your genius.
I sense you're wavering. The creative impulse is so valuable.
That is the stupidest statement I have ever heard.
You insult me with your derision, but let's move on.
I got into an argument with Thob Nishmatul. I feel so glum.
I got into an argument with Ted Anyamil. I'm terribly bitter about this. Ted, your large white stork leather trousers really make the outfit.
Shut up and keep walking.
Alright team, ready to head out? Gotta say I'm pretty pleased with how well the party's healed up. Even Godin the Mule. I definitely thought having his foot chopped off would ruin the guy, but, well, I mean, he seems absolutely fine, to be frank. Yeah, one heck of a tough animal right there. Everyone's doing good. The only real wound I'm seeing is Thob's arm. Having trouble grasping anything now, but, well, at least he survived. The rain continued on for most of the morning and into the afternoon, when, mixed with the sun, things started becoming quite humid. Much less pleasant. But still, the dwarves moved on. At this point, there were many, many days' travel from their homeland. But as for a place to build a new fortress, nothing seemed to jump out to them. No interesting terrain features, certainly no mountains, no ravines, only miles of empty scrubland and the occasional brook. By night's arrival, they had reached the far tree line in the northwest. There they made their camp. Though, finally, the party had begun to notice a change around them. The trees around them had begun to thicken immensely. They were in a forest. There was lumber to be had. The soil would still have to be checked, but it seemed likely to the dwarves that it could hold much in the way of ore. It was certainly more likely than in the arid lands they had just traversed. And they had noticed something else as well. The wind had changed. The way it blew through the trees, it seemed somewhat familiar. On the 9th of Slate, they made the discovery. A shimmering inland sea. The ocean of lace. A breathtaking sight to their sore eyes. Upon seeing it, the dwarves knew they had found the spot for their future fortress. It would take some time still to find an appropriate location on the coast, but this was most certainly it. Somewhere on the shoreline of this boundless sea would be placed the foundation of their future home. They set to work immediately in search of a location.
Remember several days ago when that horseshoe crab attacked Mathol?
It was terrifying.
Some unknown creature attacked Mathol. It was inevitable. I can't help but wonder where she is now.
Who knows, really? I'm not sure anybody could tell you.
Rimtar, is there anything you want to say?
Mathol, she was my traveling companion, a kindred spirit, my comrade. She was also a modest bard. It is terrifying.
There is nothing like a good friend.
I concur.
So, did you hear the one about the giant great horned owls and the horn beetles?
Oh man,
You're funny.
owls.
I needed a good laugh.
Yeah, they are like that.
Dwarven humor.
That was a good one.
Always gets me.
They had found it. The place they would construct their future home. A place that they had dubbed Mafal's Point. Her memory would be the foundation on which the world's salvation would be built. The real journey had just begun. Well, here it is. Fully completed. Well, the start of it anyways. Right now it's the 25th of Slate, 1206. Which means that the adventurers have been at it for just over a month. A month and a day, actually. And look how far they've come. Yeah, they spent actually a considerable amount of time building this place here. And you know, I think they did a damn fine job at it. This here is going to be an excellent spot for a future fortress. You can see here surrounding the main structure there are a bunch of little houses. That's what these are intended to be. The Glad Boulder is renowned for its above ground structures, and so I imagine that's what sort of fortress will be built here in the future. Also, you might notice the crab corpses all over the place. There's dead crabs just littered about the area. I guess they're native to the area. Rimtar doesn't seem to like them very much. He kills them on sight. Anyways, heading into the structure here and up this staircase, that brings us to the top of the watchtower, where we can have a nice view of the surrounding area. And really, that's pretty much it. The main area and all those little houses there. And that's enough to get us started for sure. Besides, we've already chopped down all the trees in the immediate area. We're excited. We're very excited. This here is going to be a start of a new journey at this place. Mafal Akil. Chamber Point. Now all we have to do is get word back to the mountain homes, and I'm sure they'll send someone right over. And with any luck, we'll have some additional assistance too. Perhaps some of Kogan's friends. Or Ted for that matter. I'm sure she could get in touch with some other humans from the Adorable Nation. They certainly would be a boon to our cause. We're gonna need all the help we can get if we're ever going to take down that damn beardless Baron and his undead hordes. Dwarves, strike the earth. Well, hello you bearded bastards, and welcome back once again to Testres, Scorchfountain, where a considerable amount of time has passed. Now, I figured we would take a look around the place and just see how things have gone down, what do you say? Because the dwarves have been fairly busy anyways. Might be nice to have a closer look at what they've done with all their time. Now then, zooming down here to the actual fortress, and nothing has changed at all with the layout. We've pretty much done no digging whatsoever. In fact, I'm going to be pretty straight with you. Not a whole heck of a lot has gone on. But that being said, there are still some notable things. So let's get to it, shall we? First up, the main faces. Winks, Damned One, Blacksmith, doing absolutely fine. Completely neutral, as always. Chilling out in the Metalsmith's quarter, of course. Beetlebane, here she is, one of the starting 7 dwarves. You know her well. Just passing through the clothing-strewn scorching hall right now. She's become a grandmother. Isn't that exciting? Oh, and actually Winks has too. And so now the two are tied by family. That's right, Beetle Baby gave birth right at the beginning of this time jump, and her daughter, Vutok, is now 14 years old. Just had her birthday the other day, actually. I don't think anybody realized it, though. Doc Ironwood doing very well, center of attention, actually. He's really become quite the social butterfly. It's good to see. Here we see Zan Eidenkosh, Necromancer, Chronicler, again doing very well, telling stories, serving drinks, a well-rounded dwarf. And of course we have some other dwarves here, Slug, training in the barracks with the other warriors. I'll tell you, this dwarf has really come around. One of our quickest dwarves nowadays, actually. She's had 62 notable kills, and 86 other kills. All kinds of people too. Bound to happen, really. We've had a lot of trouble these past 16 years. You know, it's funny, so many people don't want the world united. Damn shame, really. We're just trying to help. Anyways, also in the barracks we can see Lorbam, Etenfo, and Mafal, our two Necromancer squad leaders. Mafal's had 71 notable kills, and 73 other kills, respectable to be sure, and Lorbam has gotten 70 notable kills, and 87 other kills. Not too shabby, eh? Yes, they've been cutting quite the swath through the surrounding nations. In fact, you know what? Here, let's have a look at that. Just so you can start getting an idea of how much we've, united the world in these past 16 years. Alright, now here, have a look. This is the world as it existed 16 years ago. You can see all those little nasty red bubbles all over the place. Enemies. Well, we've been picking away at them. Down here to the south, around Scorchfountain, 16 years ago. Today. Well, I mean, granted, most of those weren't red bubbles, but we've still cleared them away. Had to be done, really. We do still have some enemies over this way, but we're clearing them out. Not a biggie. Farther over here to the west. Ooh, that's a nasty looking area, isn't it? All those goblins. We were at war with them, but no more because they have been erased. And you know who else has been erased? Here, flipping the map back, here is 16 years ago, and you can see the Fresh Theater, a dwarven nation, a large dwarven nation. We were actually pretty afraid of them, to be perfectly frank. But here we go, skipping forward. Boop. Gone. Also, I'm going to take this time to note that these little ones here, these, the settlements that are blue, those belong to the Abbey of Proliferation. And those have been popping up all over the place too. So our entire civilization has our back. As we've been clearing out areas, they've been being taken over by our civilization. It's pretty good to see. Actually, you can see a lot of that if you look up this way here. 16 years ago, we have this big old blob, a useless area. And then, moving forward, would you look at that? We now claim all this area right here. There is still another dwarven nation over this way, the Glad Boulder, but they're so small and insignificant, we haven't even bothered with them. It's not like they're gonna pose too much of a threat to us. Not concerned. Anyways, if you have a look up this way here, you'll note some elven settlements. Pretty annoying. And incredibly stubborn, actually. We've been trying to work away at them, but they don't seem to want to go anywhere. A little worrisome, but not really, though. We have nothing to be afraid of. They will unite with us, or they will be eradicated. Although, I'm pretty sure I know which way it's going to go at this point. Now then, on the subject of the elf wars recently, well, we should probably go over our spoils. Well, I don't know which joker did it, but somebody brought home some coyotes, and, well, they're rampant at this point. There are coyotes all over the fortress. There's got to be dozens of them. They keep having litters, whatever. Coyotes, we have them. We also have some giant Kias flapping about the place. They're pretty annoying, but, whatever. Oh, and actually passing by right here, you can see I don't know, what would you call this? A herd? A troop of giant hamsters. Yeah, some joker thought it would be funny to bring these home too. They've just kind of been roaming about the fortress too. Whatever. That's fine. Also interesting, our most interesting spoil is an elf that we brought home. And I'm not too sure why we did bring her home, but she's here and has been living here pretty happily for a while. So far, this is the only person to have willingly united with us, and all the rest have been eradicated. We don't know her name, she does not have one, but we've made her a tavern keep and she spends her day serving ale to the dwarves, something she does happily. It's good to see. Now then, what else have we done in these 16 years? Ah yes, the Etten Grease, still burning hot, just in case you were wondering. And what else? There are a couple dwarves who left. Stinthad left. Good riddance, he wasn't too happy here. Dishmab left. The old cook. To hell with you. Oh, and you know, I guess there is one dwarf we have not looked in on yet. Who could forget? Our world-famous beardless Baron, Moldov. Currently up here in the Temple of Aker, doing another load of giants. Gotta keep Scorchfountain happy. It's only right after all. Oh, there you go. And a Cyclops. Down you go. And 2 Cyclopses. Yeah, that should do it for now. yeah, the guy's been doing pretty darn well so far, I'd say. Just kind of keeping a handle on things, making sure the dwarves behave themselves. He's been commanding the squads like a real pro. And I should also mention that he's had not a single lick of stress in all this time. Today we're seeing a new, vibrant, level-headed Baron like we've never seen before. And I gotta tell you, that is exactly what the world needs. Baron Moldov is the best thing to have ever happened to Ored Ashi, and he will not be satisfied till he is the one true king of it all. Again, it's for the good of everyone, really. May Acker's flail grace us. Well, hello you bearded bastards, and welcome to the end of the episode where we'll be talking about some behind the scenes things once again. Now, this episode was delayed an entire day. I'm sure you could believe it if I told you that this game is kind of hard to plan for episode to episode sometimes, especially when it comes down to like plotty sort of things. If I'm just in fortress mode, like, you know, doing fortress stuff, it's usually pretty easy to plan things out. Just gotta play the game till you get enough footage, pretty much. But like this one here, I have to figure out what's gonna happen by the end of the episode, you know? Originally, I had wanted to go with the adventure mode thing for a bit longer, but I don't know, as I was wandering around this episode, I didn't really see that much to do. Didn't really want to stretch it out that much longer. Of course, when I realized that, it kind of really complicated everything, because then what do? I want to start another fortress. But how do you go about doing that exactly when you're making a dwarf fortress series on YouTube? Do you start a brand new series from scratch? Do you just continue the old series? Like, this is episode 17, would I just do episode 18? And just continue the fortress there, calling the entire series Scorchfountain? That would be kind of strange, right? So what I eventually decided on was to make it like different chapters or parts. This episode here is the end of part 1, and next episode will be the start of part 2. And I thought it'd be pretty neat if you could kind of start the second part just at the beginning without having watched the first part. That might be kind of cool, right? I don't know, we'll see what happens. As I've said, I do kind of just wing things most of the time. So I suppose I'll have to see how I'm feeling when I start recording the next episode. Now, let's see, what else can I add here? Oh, something I would like to mention is that, well, you know, I've heard a couple of people pretty upset that we're not focusing on Scorchfountain anymore, and I don't blame you at all, but you gotta remember that I'm not writing the story, you know? Like, the last few episodes of Scorchfountain were, you know, kind of, I don't want to say boring, but there really wasn't much going on. We're not getting attacked by anything. It's just raiding. And in fact, that's all it was, those 16 years there that I did that time jump in. Just constant raiding. Admittedly, we did get attacked by the elves a couple times, but it wasn't for like 10 years out from when I first started playing that time jump. And really, there wasn't that much to talk about even. And so, you know, I'm pretty glad to be doing this, honestly. I think it'll work out pretty well. Some people have suggested that I just stop the series and say, Scorchfountain lived happily ever after. And that doesn't sit well with me either. I like this world. It's interesting. I like to explore a bit more, honestly. And while I don't see the Beardless Baron being personally involved with this new fortress that we're going to be starting, I guess you never really know, huh? Dwarf Fortress does like to throw its curveballs at you sometimes. My bearded bastards, I do hope you enjoyed this first part of the Scorchfountain series, and I certainly hope to see you next time, here in Ored Ashi, the universes of wonders. And until then, you bearded bastards.